One can chant Hare Krishna.
Greetings. I am Coach Bay,
And I am Falak.
and you're listening to the #1 podcast on the airwaves.
How we see ourselves, how we codify things, how we evaluate, how we perceive.
The progress is healing the wound that the blow made.
Well, my life is not important to me. Other people's life important. My life is only important if me can help plenty people. If my life is just me, my own security, then I don't want it. My life is for people.
Welcome to another episode of In Conversation with Scholars and Sages.
Microphone check 1, 2. What is this? The 5 Foot is back with the brand new business.
So you got yourself a new mic?
Yeah. This is nice. This is a new setup here. This is my first podcast in my new house. Well, my new space, my new bachelor pass. Yeah. So it may sound a little more spacious, a little bit more. I'm not in the box I was in, So making reference, this is Black History Month, and
Yes.
What I found that a lot of people did not know who Carter G. Woodson was.
Who's that?
Yeah, that's it. That's been, right? Carter G.
Because all they teach is about who is Dr. King, Rosa Parks.
Exactly. And what was amazing is that I expected kids, especially, these younger ones, not to know, but there was a lot of adults that didn't, and the Carter G. Woodson being the father, they call him the father of Black history. And even further, we're unfamiliar with the miseducation of the Negro. This very different kind of month here. Like a lot happens in February, ironically. You have, of course, this being traditionally Black History Month. You also have B.T. Swami's Appearance Day. You have this the assassination or the transition, however you want to see it, of Malcolm X on February 21st. You have Bob Marley's birthday, February 6th. Like all these things, and then you have President's Day.
It's a conspiracy.
Yes. Where we commemorate the great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln, right?
Yeah.
And his birthday is in February too. So what do you think? What in terms of this month, how relevant is Black History Month?
Well, let me start out saying, in a tongue-in-cheek but also very serious way. One, for the listeners, we know we're not Black.
Speak on it.
So we're using that word. We're using
very
that word.
loosely. Right.
Yeah, very loosely. And we know that Lincoln didn't liberate the slaves. We know that. Okay, we got that out the way. So
yes, thank you for the disclaimer.
So as far as Black History Month, which was Black History Week at one point.
Yes, sir.
It's important. And some people, in our community try to discredit Black History Month, on that whole, oh, we're not Black, But we should be studying our history year round. We should know who our, people were who did, how you would say, monumental or they did things in our community which had an impact.
Definitely.
Excuse me. And you mentioned Carter G. Woodson. There was a book before The Miseducation of the Negro. Actually, was he like the first? He wasn't the first PhD, was he? At Harvard, was he the first? I think he was the first PhD.
Yeah,
I want to say he was the first one.
Yeah. If you say so, yeah. I'm around.
So we can look that up. But realizing even the so-called scholars at the time in the circles that he ran in, they were given misinformation. Information they should have known or did know was not factual. And so that's what inspired me to start writing. And then, it kind of came to that idea of how we've been miseducated. Because most people hear that and they think, well, I don't know what to think, but but it's systemic. We're intentional. People were intentionally miseducating us. And the thing is, and I was recently hearing someone speaking about Carter G. Woodson, and I believe they were speaking about him saying we have to study white history, or someone was saying we have to study, so-called white history, or white people, if you will. But I first learned that from John Henry Clark. We have to study those who study us, because what I've come to realize is that they know us. They know us way more than we know ourselves, and we've been kept ignorant. And someone was making a good point the other day. I was hearing, by knowing us, there's a, and I don't want to make like this person is a bad person. I have no idea who this person is, but and there is a YouTube video out there somewhere. I've seen one or two of them, and it's a white person, and they deconstruct hip hop. They take rap lyrics, they deconstruct the beats, the lyrics, everything, and they real academic with it, right? Just that's hip hop, right? But as a people, as a culture, there are people who deconstruct every single thing about us, right? And they know, and the reason they do that is so they can control us and master the topic of what is blackness, right? We see white kids all the time pull the pants down and doing all the what we would consider the worst things about our culture. They do that thinking, oh yeah, I'm being black, and we're like, that's not what we're about, right?
Exactly.
But then they can easily pull up the pants, cut the hair, do whatever the case may be, and go out and just blend with society. We have this badge, the skin complexion. But we need to know who we are. And what interests me on a spiritual level, we have some idea who we are spiritually, but then if we study African culture, which some people are like, we're not African, but whatever, you study indigenous American culture, whatever you want to look at, if you study these, our roots, you find that, spiritually, we have we come to the same understanding to a degree. And we're, as a modern people, we've kind of lost that, they lost that touch. We're naturally spiritual, but we're not in tune with it the way we should be. And I think if we come into that spirituality, and I'm not talking necessarily religion, we come into the understanding of who we are spiritually and as a people, and we start to live on that platform, right? We start to, project that outwardly and inwardly, then we're forced to be reckoned with. And I think that's why a lot of people want to keep us oppressed, because they know who we are. Like, as I said, they understand us kind of as a what is the word called? Sociologists would understand a people, right? They study us, but spiritually, I think they understand as well. Because if we look at the systems, all of these things, people say, oh, that's satanic, that's this and that. It's a perverted reflection of the African traditions. And I know I'm kind of going in circles. We can hone it in, but,
no,
but a lot of the things that people talk, oh, this is a cult, this is Illuminati, this is whatever. I tell people, I say, before you say that, maybe, look at what the origins of these things are. Like Hitler with the swastika, that symbol is a symbol of hate. We all recognize it as a symbol of hate, but I say we all, but we understand what it means. But even deeper than that, it's the African symbol. Most people think of it as a Hindu symbol.
How many people, I'm going to tell you, I was, and I credit Christian consciousness with realizing that. Because I would see that the first time I saw that in one of them, of course, coming from a video and just devouring the videos, man. And when I would watch, following Prabhupada series, and I would see that, what I thought was the swastika, I was like, did I just see what I thought I saw? And it took me a minute, of rejecting it. Like, no, that's not it. That's just something I'm seeing it wrong. And then really seeing it, and where I had to go deeper. And then I found out, that was not a symbol that, but I'm late into my 30s at this point, man. It took me in. I consider myself a pretty read, a well-read person, I've been studying, loving. Yeah, I didn't know that until it's been maybe about 10 years now that I've known that, that is not the Nazi symbol,
Yeah. And they get deeper than that. Like, so for instance, when Hitler was going to find the Aryan nation, the first place he went to he went to Africa to try to find the origins of the
Didn't know that.
Aryan.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
he knew to go there.
That symbol.
Wow.
Yeah. And that symbol, you can find it on the walls, and you can find it carved in walls. You can find little African kids who have that branded on them.
Amazing.
Part of the tribal thing.
Amazing.
But then another thing, there's a photo the Native Americans, I want to say it's Apache, but I'm not sure. There was a particular Native American group, and I'm sure there's more, but this particular photo, they were signing, it was a photo of a lady and some other people from the tribe. They were signing an agreement that they would stop using the swastika in their ancient pottery because, the whole Nazi thing. So I was like, okay, so why was that part of their ancient symbolism? When you go back and you look at it, so we know how in the Vedas it talks about King Parikshit was bitten by a snake bird, correct? So he's bitten by this snake bird, and the snake bird, if you come to South America, that snake bird is symbolized by the swastika. But do you know who that person is? I can't pronounce the name, but there's two gods. One was black and one was white. And the black one came through the night sky, and he came bringing spiritual knowledge and high science. But he's represented. Sometimes you see him as a winged snake, and other times you see him as a swastika, represented as a swastika. So the ancient Native American or indigenous American symbolism of the swastika was there, depicting basically a black god, an African god.
Wow, man.
So yeah, there's a whole lot of connections. Yeah, the Vedic connections, a lot of stuff that Prabhupada talks about that we don't hear very often. But if you read Krishna book, you'll hear. I've spoken to people from islands and different places where they grew up with the same traditions, no connection with Vedic, thought, but the same traditions on certain things.
Amazing.
And it's very interesting because, just going back, people might be upset with that, but we originated a lot of things. Sanskrit language was basically like English, right? English is the language you use for business around the world. Sanskrit was the same way. We invented the Sanskrit. And another word for Sanskrit is Devanagari, right? So Deva means God, is language of the gods, but who are the Naga?
That's it. I got you.
That's where the question. Yeah. So
I got you. And far as the Dravidians, right? Yeah. And far as the Dravidians,
as far as the people out of Kush.
Yes, sir.
Kush, Ethiopian. So in the oldest, I'll say the earliest physical evidence of organized religion, or basically an altar with a deity, excuse me, was found in South Africa, and the deity was a python. The snake symbolism goes way back, and even in modern times, we look at voodoo and these different religions coming out of Africa in the West today. Some of them may not have a snake; they may have a lizard or something. But it was because of the persecution and the Europeans coming in and destroying the snakes and saying, "Look, I killed your god," and stuff like that. So they would kind of hide that symbolism. But it's always been there. And so I spent several years studying the Naga and tracing them out of Kush, or like the Ethiopia area. Well, technically, I guess northern Sudan, or southern Sudan, sorry, tracing them and all the way up to Ireland. And in ancient times, all the way up to Ireland, you get the whole leprechaun and all that stuff going on that has some connection there into India. So at one point they went up through Egypt, and then they came down. So they talk about the Aryan invasion. That was never a real situation, especially not European Aryans. that wasn't a cause. But then they went also through the south. So they went directly east into the south, and coming, so Egypt and then southern India, and then coming a little bit more modern times, we have King Solomon and was it Queen Sheba?
Queen Sheba, Makeda, yes, sir.
Yeah. So her son King Menelik, he went to India to, she had a lot of land over there. He went to kind of shore up things. When he came back, King Solomon was kind of, I guess, hoping he would take on the tradition, his
hold on,
religious.
Coach Bay, hold on, Coach Bay, just 1 second, just quick.
Am I going too much?
No, it's just so dope. Now you just connected the Kibra Nagast You see what I'm saying? You just connected with the Rastas, you know, what they hold tight. Now you just connected that to India, man. That's awesome. Keep going. That's all. That's it. That's it. I just had to acknowledge that.
Okay. Yeah. So when King Melody came back, he didn't adopt, Solomon's tradition, right? But if you look at the early Christian religion, you look at them, they were they were ascetics and they were learning. And you look at the religion, as it was, it had a lot of Buddhist influence, a lot of Naga, awesome, a lot of the Nagas were there, Naga Babas, right? The ascetics in India, a lot of the traditions were there. It evolved over time to what it is now, I guess you could say. But if you go to Ethiopia, you start looking, you're going to see a lot of the more traditional teachings. So there's a lot of connections. Some of the stuff is really loose, so it's kind of like, that may not be accurate. But you read the Bible, you're going to find Ramah, you're going to find Cush. But if you look at those Lord Rama's kids, Love and Cush, look where they went to, like Lahore. They went all the way down to Vietnam and all those places down there. Look on the map, you'll see they have, not only do they have the land named after them. You see the tradition, even though they're, the Angkor Wat is Buddhist temple. It was a temple to Shiva, and Lord Vishnu, all that stuff was there. Where was I going? Look on the map today. To this day, you'll find, Negro land, Negro island, Negro this, Negro that, all over there in, Southeast Asia. Wow. Right. So we were there, and you look at the old deities. I need to go there myself personally, but you look at the old carvings. These are where you see these pictures of these, black Buddhas and stuff. That's all coming out of that area. And so it connects back, it all connects back to us is the point I'm making.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we had the spiritual science, and according to some people, the religion aspect of it came when we were trying to share our sciences, right? We were trying to explain math, right? So if you have a circle and the center point of that circle, you make that guide, right? And no matter where that center, where that point moves, that's considered the center. But if you make an arc, you get a circle, flat piece of paper, you make an arc going over, you can measure distance. And actually we had measurements of the earth prior to, before we so-called had boats that could sail in the seas.
Wow.
And this is where you find stories about what's the name? Who's the richest? Who's the richest guy? My brain.
Mansa Musa?
Mansa Musa. I kept yeah. So apparently his brother, the legend is that his brother came.
Now you connected to Islam. Go ahead. Now you did Islam. Go ahead.
So apparently his brother came to the U.S. Right? Came to the West, a fleet like hundreds of ships or whatever. And some of them came back. They got separated. Some of them came back like, we think they're lost. And that's how Mansa Musa became, emperor at the time.
Wow.
And of course he had all the money. He bankrupted a lot of countries. Just going,
Yeah, that's the story I know.
So there's so much there, right? And we had all these books, Timbuktu, we had all these books, there. The libraries were destroyed. Alexander, the libraries all destroyed. People talk about how we're indigenous to, America, which, to an extent, but we all came, somewhere, some point. But even that, we had the Freedmen's Bureau, right? And all of the, all of our, documents, right? All the documents about it so happened to be in one building that just happened to catch on fire when they started talking about the civil rights and things like that. When we were trying to get our connection, so we just happened to lose all of that connection.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Just a quick question on that. Being, that's a growing movement as far as the indigenous, us being indigenous or sovereign to this land. Why do we have names like Bennett and Fletcher? Then why so many, why don't we have like sovereign names, like or names that are, like on the reservation, like there's some Native American names that are came all the way down to this point. What do they say? What happened?
Yeah, that's it. It is interesting because the obvious answer is because of enslavement, right? But in terms of we're all indigenous, like I said, some people with that mindset think that we have no connection with Africa, which is false. We do have connection with Africa, but we also have connection with indigenous people, right? They're trying to push us out, and some of them are some chiefs are openly saying that they don't want us. That was back then, and we're no longer brothers and sisters anymore.
Right.
But but seriously, I mean, we have people who are claiming indigenous who are not indigenous. And what one presents, the skin tone, that's not a factor, right? We know we can all look different. But there are those people who don't have genetic ties, you would say. And then there are those people who do, like myself, have genetic ties. And they're saying, well, that doesn't mean anything, right? And the fact that I have a lot of genetic ties, I have enough to legally, I should be able to claim, right? But they say no. This is like so it's a political thing at this point, right? It's completely political. And I got it to I don't even know how I was involved with some group with First Nations group, and then somebody was upset with something and was trying to blame all black people for it. Like, hey, this has nothing to do with us. This is a political issue. This is I think it was a Trump supporter. I was like, this has nothing to do with black people, period. Where can you even make the link? And I said, you're over here openly having hate. I was always taught by my family, my mother, that we're all brothers and sisters, and especially with the indigenous people, and knowing that 1 in every 3 indigenous person has a black grandparent.
You better speak. You better speak.
Yeah. So how can you like turn and say use these things and try to hate us as a people? So it's a lot there. In terms of the history, but I think some people, and coming back to our community, some people are grifters, they want to make a quick buck, but then other people I think are just searching for something, some identity, right? And that's where I think the spiritual thing comes in. We're all spiritual beings, but then how does it go? Oh, I don't identify. I'm a spiritual, I'm a spirit soul or whatever. People don't talk like that, right? But we have to have that understanding of who we are on that level. But then what we gravitate. I was just speaking to my friend today from Ghana. I have significant amount of ties to Ghana, but most of my ties, my African ties, are from Nigeria. But I say, I know some people from Ghana, from Nigeria. Mostly they're more senior people, so I don't have that necessarily that kind of relationship, but say my connection's always been to Ghana. It's always been that way. I have Egyptian connection. I have connection to several places, but if I were to identify on the African aspect, it would be Ghana, right? But we don't necessarily dwell on that. But that's the point I'm making, is that we have these cultural identities, and that I think we can rely on the cultural identities, but if we don't have any genetic ties, then that's kind of like a thing. It becomes an issue, because if you have no genetic ties and you're saying that I'm this, I'm that, and then you use that position, you have a position like let's say the chief of a particular tribe, and you're trying to kick out indigenous black people because their skin color is and here you are not even looking like anything but a European and probably have no native DNA, right? And it's like, well, where's the culture? If I identify culturally and I've grown up generationally grown up in this particular tribe, why am I now being asked to leave? Especially if it was my ancestors, my grandmother, or whoever who brought this government money in. So it's a lot. And I know we just talked about a whole lot of craziness, but each little detour I took, if you study any of those in depth, you'll find African roots to it. You'll find how we as a people were very instrumental in a lot of these things, you know, whether it's the science coming out of Africa, or, you know, the culture and what was that, what is that place? So Hindu got his name from Sindhu, the Sindhus Valley. Yeah, my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So that Harappa, that Sindhu, yeah, that area, understanding that was, you know, Africans who settled that place. And
didn't know
like
that.
I said, I've done studies. Yeah, I studied everything, like the bangles they would make out of the conch shells. That was an African tradition. A lot of the things we can go. When I study history, I used to say the way I came at it was the psychology behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know why things happen, what was the thoughts behind it. But I look at the agriculture, I look at the music, I look at the art, I look at the language, I look at the dress, and I look at every aspect I can think of, not just, oh, they look this way, or they came out of this country or whatever. I'm looking at every single thing, and the food they eat, how they grow the food, so many things, and tracing it back to Africa. You know where you heard of Brahmin cows? Have you seen Brahmin cows?
Oh no, not maybe on a picture or something. Yeah.
They look interesting, right? They're very unique looking cows.
Yes.
You know where the most genetic, so looking at genetics, the cows, the Brahmin cows, where that genetic pool is most prominent at?
Where? Africa.
I'll just say it was in Africa.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Africa.
Yeah,
jeez.
So,
man, that's
the cowherd boys. The cowherd boys there, yo. I mean, if you look at that dark continent that everyone says is backwards and this and that, I mean, you look at it, and even the dumb beast or beast of burden, you know, they talk about. I trace that back to, you know, the colonial in India, you know, because cow is sacred there. But you look at how in the village of Vrindavan, you know, how the boys were first at a certain age given a calf to take care of, and then as they grew older, they graduated to taking care of the cows. Sometimes they might have goats that they were herding. You contrast that with traditional groups in Africa, some of these nomadic tribes in Africa, and you see everything is similar. Some of the words are similar. The language, a lot of things are similar. You know, and then coming to America, same situation. You know, a lot of you can tell from where the Black influence, I guess you would say, Native American. So coming to North America, I'll stick to North America, so we're familiar with that. If you hear about the Indian teepees and stuff like that, or, you know, maybe you heard about log cabins. But if you look at any stone structures, there was certain indigenous people who were very tall. They built stone structures. And there's one place out west right now you can go to. The ruins are still there, like 4-story, you know, like whole complex. And now they're trying to say maybe it was just for animals, but it was basically like a hotel in a sense, right?
That's right.
These were Black Indians, and you can read documents of people who travel all the way from South America all the way up north, and they talk about the different people they encountered, and how these Black Indians were tall and they had long legs, and they were building most of the Black Indians. You always hear stone structures were there behind them, and then there's a whole lot. And I don't even want to go into all of it on the show, but there's just so much. There's so much I could tell you. And a lot of it's right in our face. If you ever watch any of these shows, like, I won't call any of them out right now, but, you know, just whenever you watch any kind of historical shows, they may focus on one aspect, but if you know about our culture, our history, you can see, okay, well, wait a second. They're actually talking about us, but they won't say it. You are maybe not looking at something more modern, but this is what was really going on. Yeah, I'm just thinking of Mexico, and I'm thinking, it's a lot. It's a lot. And when Columbus and those guys came here, de las Casas, which is Bartholomew de las Casas, he was a priest who was traveling with, you know, these guys. And he talks about it. They destroyed any indigenous person who was African looking, because they knew who we were. They've been dealing with us for years, centuries. Going so-called to India, they would have to go around.
Keep going.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah. They would have to go around Africa, so they have to have places where they stop to get the boats repaired, get supplies. So they knew exactly who we were. Excuse me. But when they came here, and when the Pope gave a papal bull, or he gave a law where you can go and enslave these people, do whatever you need, convert them. De las Casas writes, and others, when they came across the indigenous, I won't use the word they use, but they came across indigenous people who were more light skinned, they tried to, give them Christianity. Sometimes they would be slaughtered, taken into slavery. But when they came across the so-called, dark skinned or black Indians, typically they were just, killed right off the bat. And if you go down to Cuba, like 90%, I think, of the population was destroyed before they started bringing in African slaves. So, it's a long, bloody history, mostly dealing with, wanting gold, money, right? But like I said, they knew who we were as just by our appearance. We weren't, some scary person they didn't never see before. They knew exactly who they were dealing with. And they knew who we were on a more esoteric level as well, how advanced we were. The punitive wars of Nigeria, I'm thinking about that. They wanted to destroy, their aim was to destroy the culture so bad that for hundreds of years we'd be lost. Did you know that Nigeria had a Great Wall that was bigger than the Great Wall of China in length?
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I did not know
the art that they stole, those masks, the masks they stole, the metal. First of all, it looks like a real person. You see the hair on the beard and everything, but it's all metal. The smelting technique that they had to use to do that, Europeans didn't have that. Other countries didn't even have it in Africa, to get fire that hot and to use that process. It was something that took hundreds of years, or at least 100 years before other people could even catch up to it. So it's far more advanced. Just the technique of melting the metal, what to speak of getting the very lifelike, thing. So we were an advanced people, and knowing that when the slave trade happened, which was 4 months to the day Columbus left 4 months to the day that the last Moors were kicked out of Grenada and Spain. So within 4 months, he was traveling here to start, the slave trade. But they had practiced that over there in the islands over there off Portugal, creating the system, plantation system, and making it basically like a factory, working like a factory. So that was a planned situation. They came here, a whole bunch of other things were going on in the mix of that. But we got here and they started bringing us over. They were bringing not some savages who didn't know it. They were bringing people with particular skills. For instance, Barbados, people in Barbados went to the continent of the United States and got North and South Carolina, right? And they were modeling that off of Barbados. If you go to New Orleans, they have, I guess, a lot of wrought iron designs on the houses. They brought people from Africa who had that skill. When they were growing rice, they brought cultivators of rice who had the skill. They brought people with certain skills to Africa. So we hear people today say, oh, well, if it wasn't for slavery, you wouldn't know this or that. No, we were brought here because
of those skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is true. And you can confirm that. You can confirm that, right? It was, they brought other people before us, right? And we were the best, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. They say that the indigenous couldn't tolerate, but really they're from America. How could they not tolerate the climate, right?
Climate, that makes sense.
Maybe they just look like us, and they just because with the Spanish wars in Florida, we got the whole Seminole thing, right? I'm reading source material. The Seminoles were not runaway slaves. What they did, they tricked the U.S. government and go and become slave catchers. But they were never, I won't say they were, let's just say that they were, and I don't remember the number, but I could say, I believe, realistically, it was less than 100, probably way less than 100, maybe less than 50, blacks who had escaped slavery and joined the Indians. What was happening was you had the civilized tribes, right? The so-called civilized tribes, like in certain groups, they were huge tribes, right? So what the U.S. government and Europeans were saying was, hey, this smaller band of Indians, you're now Cherokee, you're now, whatever, they just put them all together. And these so-called civilized tribes were taking them, okay, yeah, now we're going to control you now. And so they were running away from that. So those were the so-called runaways, or the Seminoles, were these other indigenous tribes. And who were they running away to join? They were running away to join the Africans who were already there. Some of them came with the Spanish years, centuries before. Some of them may have literally been, indigenous here in the beginning of times, right? But we were not the runaways, is the point I'm making.
Got it.
It was people coming to join us.
Got it.
And we were so fierce because for those who were run away from the plantations, they could understand the language, English or French or whatever, because we were multilingual. And so there's descriptions of battle going on where the blacks were like just destroying these American soldiers, and they were able to speak the language. There's so much. Yeah. But yeah, we need to know it. We need to know that we need to understand the rebellions that we went through, understand the reactions that happened because of the rebellions, what was done to us because of that, Black Wall Street, what was done to us, and take notes from that. Why is there always violence whenever we try to do something positive, even if we're not, like the whole Black Lives Matter? There was nothing violent about the people saying Black Lives Matter, but there was a violent response to it.
Definitely.
People in the black community saying, well, the ladies were gay, so we don't support them. Like, okay, so you want a lesbian standing up for you, or do you want a cops be on your throat?
Standing on your throat, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. We have to. We're searching for identity, and we're taking on an identity that's not ours, is not conducive to who we are as a people, spiritually or anything, and that causes mental stress, psychological trauma, right? And we may not be aware of it, but we're trying to live a Eurocentric lifestyle. It doesn't work out for us, but we don't know who we are, and even you mentioned the names. We're taking on these certain names. What I found in my family, particularly, I'm not sure of other people, a lot of our middle names have significant meaning, and I think has cultural identity, especially now in doing the family tree and the DNA. I realized, okay, there was something there. And often we read about, say a slave master was father to child. Maybe they don't name the kid after the master, but they had some kind of connection there, right? So, that could be a thing. A lot of the quote unquote black names, you can't get a job if you have those. Actually are, but a lot of those names are actually European names.
Wow.
A lot of them Irish, Scottish names. Yeah, we don't, because you don't hear that many whites with those particular names these days, but they're European names. They're not black names at all.
So the Laquitas and all that stuff, that's those.
I'm not saying Laquita, but like I'm trying to think maybe a Tyrone or something like that. I think these are yeah. Some of these are actually European names.
I know that there's a famous actor named Tyrone Power. That was he was white as rice. You know what I'm saying? And he was real powerful, a real popular actor.
Yeah, so.
I sent you on the last, talk to me a little bit. You have, but I like your response when I sent you this link on the Hindus. And it was really comment on how Africans are taken to Hinduism and the explosion there. Give us, give me a few minutes on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen altars, in African shrines that have, your Hindu deities, if you will. And like I said, things, if you look at, so we spoke about the Naga, right? There's a day, and I want to say it's in October now, because obviously we don't celebrate it, but there's a day in October where it's like a Naga day or whatever, and they celebrate the cobras. Because growing up, you probably saw the person with the flute and the cobra coming out of the basket, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you go, there's a day in Hinduism where the snake is revered. It's like a holiday or something. Where was I even going with that?
Wow, you're talking about the African, but man, that got me thinking about. I used to see that all the time as a kid. I don't ever see it anymore. The flute with the cobra coming out. Yeah, talk to it. What's up?
Yeah. So, but the cobra or the serpent is there, but that's an African. The point where I was going with is you'll find a lot of the traditional things you'll find connected to Africa. And have you heard the story of Ulupi and Arjuna?
Yeah.
So Arjuna, when they were trying to install King Yudhisthira as the king of the world, right? So it wasn't just you had your small kingdoms, right? But you had the king of the world, the emperor, whatever you would call him. So they had to go out to all the different parts of the world. So if they're going to all the different parts of the world, they had to go to Africa. They had to come to the Americas, right?
Right.
Which would explain why we find a lot of connections with some of the traditions here, right? But Ulupi, she seduces Arjuna, and when I first read the story years ago, like this sounds African.
Oh yeah.
If you look at what she did and how she did it, and a lot of the stuff is definitely connected to Africa. And it's one thing, like I said, for something to sound or to appear a certain way, but when you dig into it, you verify certain things. And so another connection, which I came across having nothing to do with the religion or anything, Alexander the Great, so-called.
Right. The Greek, Alexander the Great.
Yeah. Which I was going to mention that earlier. Greek studies, if you go to Central State here in Ohio, the book, and I'm not sure what book they use today, but up until recently, if not still, the book that the college level Greek studies that was written by a black person who was actually formerly enslaved. He was formerly enslaved, became so educated, he wrote the Greek book that we use today, to this day.
Get out of here.
Yeah, that's
wow.
Just powerful minds,
Wow.
But Alexander, right? So he goes conquering the world, trying to conquer the world. And at some point he gets to India and there's a river. He's trying to cross the river to get to this place, there's a palace there and he wants to, go in and try to take over. He was turned back. He never got to take over this part. We'll talk about some African rulers of India at some point too. But he got there and like I said, they couldn't get across. They couldn't take over this part. So they're turning back, which why would they turn back? But he saw some Naga Babas, these sadhus who walk around naked, right? Or maybe they wear a loincloth and have the long dreadlocks. They were stomping their feet. And it was like, what's going on? What are they talking about? So inquire what he was talking about. And through an interpreter, one of the older yogis or, sadhus said, we know what you're trying to do. And that stomping the feet means you're trying to take over the world. You try to walk around and take over the world. It's like, it's not going to happen. Like, you're not God. How do you take over the world? And at some point, one of the younger sadhus left the group and he started traveling with Alexander. And they criticized him. Oh, you're after worldly things. You're Maya. Basically, you're not spiritually minded. You're looking at material things, right? So he traveled. They left India. The moment they stepped foot in Africa, the sadhu became sick. So sick to the point to where he's like, I'm going to die. And, prepare. I need you to do X, Y, Z. So they have to prepare a funeral pyre, a fire for him to leave his body in. So the story, and this is where the debate was coming. The debate was about how the sadhu died and Alexander's role in it, right? So one side was saying that, they just buried, they did a simple sacrifice, burned his body, did whatever, just kind of discarded him, no big deal. The other one was saying that no, Alexander was very much inspired by this person. By the way, this sadhu was mentioned as black with dreadlocks, very much inspired by this person. And so they had a whole ritual, fit for, a saintly person. And they built a fire, he left his body, they burned him. They had a whole funeral process, right? And not only that, Alexander the Great, so-called, he went on to start worshiping this deity of this sadhu, which was some black Rasta, dreadlock god from Hinduism, which obviously was Lord Shiva. And there's another painting. There's an old painting of a king who became a sadhu. He was, because a king, if you're a king, you have to go conquer land. That was just part of it. That was part of what you had to do. So there was a lot of violence there. And so to counteract that violence, he said, well, you need to, if you want to give up your throne and become a renunciate, to counter that violence, you need to go worship Lord Shiva. So there's a picture of this particular sadhu in the brain that my mind is not thinking of his name. If I hear it, I'll know. But this picture of him and his spiritual master together, and they're both the dreadlocks. One is black skin. The other one has like kind of a green or blue, whatever, which the colors have meaning, but the point is they were both African, looking, kings of India. And up until recent times, before the British came, there were African kings, and the British, they installed, they became the kings, right? The Rajarajas or whatever they call themselves. They became the kings, but they installed certain Brahminical class, certain people that they wanted to be the Brahmins, who based on appearance, not based on, anything else. So they installed these certain groups, and they intermarried with them, and they took over, rulership. But the indigenous, or I guess you would say the indigenous people who were the Brahmins and the kings were relegated to the forest. So to this day in India, you get the people. Well, we hear about the what they call the low class people, the Sudras and the Haridasas, right? the Gandhi called them. We hear about them, but the Adivasis, the people who live in the forest, right? The Adi means original, and Vasi means forest. So the original forest dwellers, or the Aboriginal, or the first people of India, they're persecuted to this day because of their African, appearance and heritage, right? So these Brahmins, these leaders, and these kings. So the Brahmins are the spiritual people, but they were, over the kings essentially, right? These people were relegated to the forest by the British when they came in, and they were replaced with other people. So you look at it, they're the people of the forest, they're the original inhabitants, and they're being persecuted and killed to this day because of their African background. So people don't ask questions. They should ask more questions.
Wow. And that's right there in our face, plain to see. It's right there.
So then, we got this ancient Vedic culture. Where's that ancient Vedic culture coming from? Because they say, oh yeah, we gave this to Egypt, and that no, we gave you, and then to say that, oh, these people are low class, they're forest people or whatever, and we acknowledge them to the fact that they're low class. But wait a second, where did your culture come from? These original people, right? And these are the dog eaters, right? That's what people consider the dog eaters, right? Would that be? Is that? Are we talking about? Some of those, but some of those also like derogatories against Islamic people as well.
Right. Okay.
So but it's and if you look, there's a group of Naga in India today which look Asian, as in like from China, somewhere like that. They have that kind of appearance, or even maybe like maybe someone from Brazil, someplace. But you look at their traditional clothing and you can see the African connection there. But then if you know the history, then you understand when the Naga went into India, the Naga went everywhere. They were all over Europe. Like I said, you can look at the Twa, you look at the leprechauns, you look at, and the Indians were there. The people from India and the Africans, there's a long history, going back centuries, right? But if you look at the history, the Nagas, they were seafaring people. They basically had a navy. They were tough. Nobody could beat them, right? The first group that's documented as really taking them on were quote unquote Mongoloids, or people from Asia, and they met. There was the battle. They were kind of defeated, but they ended up intermarrying and created a whole different people. So you got this society in South India, which is like Vedic, but it's a little bit different than the scriptures we look at. And so they talk about the whole Aryan invasion. But those were the I won't say Chinese, but people from that region, and the Africans connecting together. So so that's the history there. And
Nagas. Can you send me some stuff on the Nagas?
Yeah, I'll find some stuff. I should have wrote a whole book on them. I did years of research.
Yeah, man. It sounds like it's worthy of a book or a doc or a movie, man. It sounds like some nice.
Yeah. And people, like I said,
stuff,
nowadays you see, people, Hare Krishnas or different people saying, we have this connection with Africa. For a while, they were, denying it, but now they say, we have a connection with Africa. We gave them this and we gave, no. Like, the connection was there. They talk about the Lord Jagannath Rath Yatra, which is, we can talk about that if you like. But the connection with that is the, so about the boat, right? And the procession in Egypt, and the boat carries you over the waters of the material world into the spiritual world.
Is that what we're doing, man? Oh my gosh.
That's why if you touch the cart, your life is, if you touch the cart, you're guaranteed liberation if you look at the deities.
Gosh, that's what we're doing?
We belong here, man. This is us. This is us. This is us.
Man, I don't care if we got to get up. You know what I'm saying? Jeez, brother, I didn't know that, man.
Yeah, this is us. This is us. This is our culture. This is our history. People wrap it up in the Hinduism.
Oh my
some people get turned off by that, but this is us.
And that explains, you're blowing my mind. That explains this affinity for the culture when none of my background, I should have it. But it's like, as I got exposed to it, it's home, man,
And did you know Lord Jagannath is supposed to be an unfinished deity, correct? You know that story?
No, I know nothing like that.
All right, so okay. I guess we're gonna switch gears and talk about Krishna straight up, right?
Yeah, we're gonna wrap. We're gonna lose the last 15 minutes on this one.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's been that long already? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. We've been over an hour already. We can go, man. We can go. It's all good. Yeah.
So Lord Jagannath. So a lot of people in the Black community, right, are attracted to Lord Jagannath. Lord Jagannath, supposedly, he appears to be an unfinished deity. So the story, if I can just wrap it up briefly and try to come back to it. So there is a ancient story of I want to say pig farmer, because to this day, the people who, at least during the Rath Yatra, the Brahmins who take care of Lord Jagannath during the Rath Yatra, they come from that particular tradition, which if you trace them genetically, they're connected to the Australians and the Africans, right? So that's just on the genetic side, right? The story was that there was a king, and he heard about this deity, which is the most beautiful deity in the world. Nila Madhava. Nila means like a bluish, blackish blue color, right? It's a deity of Krishna, and it's supposed to be the most beautiful deity in the world. He wanted to see this deity. He was sending people out to all over the world again to try to find this deity. And one man, I don't know if he's the son of the king or what. I think he was. I don't think he was just ambassador. I think he was like a prince. In any case, he found out about the deity because he met this beautiful girl. She was a simple, forest girl, obviously black. That just kind of crossed my mind because I did the research. I knew the father was black. So this village girl was black. And I don't say black skin tone. I mean, like, genetically, from Africa. He met her. She was talking about this deity her father had hidden in the woods that he would take care of. He was noticing this father, he's a pig farmer, but every day he comes home smelling great, smelling like incense, right?
Yeah.
So he said, okay, well, I want to know where this deity is. First of all, he ended up marrying the daughter. I think, he got connected with the daughter. Then he convinced the father, like, I want to see this deity. So the father was like, this is my deity, if you're going to go, you have to go blindfolded. So they made an arrangement to go blindfolded. He took them through the forest. Meanwhile, the man had a bag of mustard seeds. And he put a hole in the bag. And so as he was walking through the forest, he came back.
Trail. Yeah.
So he came back, found the deity. I believe the deity disappeared after saying, hey, I'm Krishna, I'm God, whatever. The deity disappeared on him or whatever like that. So flash forward. Now the king is wanting to have these deities carved. So they call this celestial carver. And he was an old man. And so there's a story of 3 logs of wood, right? There's these huge logs that washed up on the ocean. And they took these logs of wood. They couldn't get them out. When they finally got them out of the water through a lot of effort, they said, we're going to carve the deities, but we need to get someone who's very expert so we can get this Nila Malava. They couldn't get him. He couldn't get the deity as the story goes of this very beautiful deity of Krishna. But the person who showed up was, like I said, was an old man. He was a celestial being. He said, okay, lock me in this room, in this chamber, and give me like a week or 3 days or whatever. I think it's like a week's time. Whatever you do, don't come in here, because the moment you come in, I'm going to stop working. I'm going to disappear. Whatever's there is there, right? So the king, being, even though he tried to steal the deity, he was very, very devotional. So he's listening, and they're concerned because, again, it's an old man. They hear the tap, 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 the chisel going on. Then one day it stops. They don't hear anything. And he's freaking out. He's like, I don't hear anything. Did he have a heart attack? What's going on? So against the instructions of the person carving, he had to go in. So he broke the doors down, went in, and he sees the deities there. Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, brothers or sisters. And he was devastated because they appeared to be unfinished. And it was funny, is that, in my brain, I'm thinking about like the deities that I used to help take care of. They were nice size, but they were, small deities, maybe about the size of a small child, right? But the actual ones are what, like 12 feet or more? They're huge. Right. They're huge, right? So he was devastated because they appeared unfinished. And then the Lord came to him and said, no, this is actually a special manifestation. And maybe you and I could talk about that special manifestation, but I'll give you this clue. It happened, Krishna took on that form one time, and he took on that form one time on the battle of Kurukshetra. Not on the battle of Kurukshetra, but the battlefield, because before, we say battlefield, but it was actually a pilgrimage site before it was a battlefield. He took on that form in ecstasy, because of the residents of Vrindavan, particularly the gopis that came to Purushottama. Yeah, they came to Purushottama, and they saw him. So that was there. Subhadra, same thing. She was there was a group of ladies talking about Vrindavan, and she said, well, I know these stories, I'm from there, so I'll go watch the door, because if you start talking about it, Krishna and Balaram are going to hear, they're going to come running. And so she was in the doorway, and she kind of hear what they're talking about, she goes in ecstasy. Krishna Balarama running to the spot, they see her in ecstasy, they go into ecstasy. So they're actually running. That's why their arms are like that. But the thing is, when it first happened, Krishna was like an intoxicated mood. You know, he was just like falling over and just engaged, enwrapped in this ecstasy of love, right? And Narada Muni saw that. And so he said, oh, you need to come. You need to give this special mercy to everybody. So that's why Lord Jagannath is the Lord of the universe. He comes out for everyone, and the people who take care of him are considered low class, but they have that special duty of taking care of this Lord of the universe. And I'll end it on that point, but I'll finish the story. Then I'll come back to a point. Yeah. So Lord Jagannath is the Lord of everyone. Haridas Thakur, who was, considered Muslim by birth, that was his particular, thing. And there's so many things, like I said, esoteric that I won't even go into right now, but I will end because I was going to say some other stuff. I'll say that blacks in Billiken Parade we spoke about, we had giant Lord Jagannath deities there. It was just actually Lord Jagannath. A lot of stories I hear about people preaching in our communities say that Lord Jagannath is a big attraction. I was first introduced to Lord Jagannath. I didn't know who he was necessarily, but I saw a sticker when I was first approached. And like I said, I already knew about Krishna consciousness. I was actually wanting to run away with the person, but I saw the deities. And my aunt, when she saw a picture of these ancient deities that they're in a museum in Britain, somewhere in England, she recognized them as African. Because this particular deity, you could tell they got the nose and you could tell. But the one thing I will stop with, since we started talking about Bhakti Tirtha Swami, is that Bhakti Tirtha Swami, they don't let people in. You could even be from India, if you're not Hindu, or if they don't think you're the right kind of Hindu, you're not getting in, right? And it's been protests going on for people who are scholars, white guys, black guys, whoever. Vedic scholars and talking about this, Bhakti Tirtha Swami got in.
That's in the book. That's in Black Lotus.
Yes, he got in. He got into the temple, and not only did he get in, he was taken to the back and got to go on the altar. So
how did he do that?
He thought he was loving it, but at the same time, he said, I thought I was about to be sacrificed because they would smash my head against the altar real hard, and they would take me to all four corners, and they blessed him. They let him go in, take darshan. Then he came back. Well, they beat you. Okay, so I'll put that out there. They beat you if you try to get in. They're like real sticks. And I'm like, oh, let them try to beat me. There's gonna be some issues.
Exactly. But some furniture moving.
But he got in. He got in. So the special place to Bhakti Tirtha Swami, just looking at it from a purely materialistic side, right? If you know his story, you can understand he was a special person, right? Yes. So I think that's what really is unique, is that people can appreciate him from that side. But then for those who do want to go deeper and look at the spiritual side, we understand, he's a very spiritual person. And the thing is, which he taught himself, we can all become that. We can all become greater than him.
He always makes it. That's what. He makes it so accessible to you that you can do it, and he's amazing. He's amazing. It's attraction.
Yeah. He says where if there's an instruction, if there's a instruction given, there's also the power given behind it. So if Prabhupada says, I ate some particular dish and it's a Japanese dish and I liked it. It tastes pretty good. We should, you did? Okay, go to Japan and start a temple. What? Probably he literally was like, hey, you said you like something about China, go to China and preach. Like, I don't know Chinese. It doesn't matter. So Bhakti Tirtha always stress, if there's instruction, there's always a power to do it.